Donald Trump leaned forward, smirking, his voice booming through the hall. So this is what passes for intelligence these days. Jasmine Crockett, ladies and gentlemen. A woman who thinks reading headlines makes her a scholar. Honestly, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Probably laugh. The crowd erupted, some laughing with him, others groaning. Cameras zoomed in, catching the flash of satisfaction in Trump's eyes. He raised a finger, pointing toward Jasmine as if to seal the humiliation. Look, it's not personal, but let's be honest here. She talks big. But when it comes to real knowledge, real decisions, she's out of her league. Way out. And frankly, it shows. The words hung in the air like poison. For Trump's base, it was vintage performance. Blunt, mocking, merciless. But for others, it was pure arrogance. A man punching down in a desperate attempt to dominate. Jasmine Crockett sat still, her face unreadable. She let the laughter roll across the room, the jeers and smirks bouncing like echoes against the walls. For 10 full seconds, she did not move. Trump mistook the silence for defeat. He leaned back, chuckling to himself, whispering something to the person beside him, but then, slowly, Jasmine reached down to the table before her. No dramatics, no grand theatrics, just one piece of paper, folded neatly in half. She lifted it, placed it on the microphone stand, and smoothed it with her palm. The room shifted. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Trump frowned, sensing the pivot. She looked up at him and finally spoke. Her voice was calm, measured, but carried the weight of a hammer. Mr. Trump, it only takes one fact to expose a lie, one paper to destroy a performance. The crowd hushed. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer. Trump blinked, a trace of uncertainty flickering behind his bravado. Jasmine unfolded the paper and read aloud. This document comes directly from the Federal Records Office. It confirms in black and white that your last claim about voter fraud in Pennsylvania was rejected by your own legal team before ever reaching a courtroom. They said, and I quote, "No evidence exists to support the assertion." The words hit like a slap. Gasps shot through the audience. Journalists scrambled, thumbs flying across phones to push the revelation onto social media in real time. Trump tried to laugh it off, waving his hand dismissively. Oh, please, that's nothing, just another piece of fake paper. But Jasmine cut in, her voice sharp now, her words slicing through his defense. Your own lawyers wrote this. Your signature is on the filing that withdrew the case. You mocked me for intelligence, Mr. Trump, but this is not about IQ. This is about truth. And you can't bury it under insults. The crowd erupted. Some clapped, others shouted. Trump's face flushed red, his mouth opening and closing like an engine sputtering to restart. He stammered, searching for a line, any line, but Jasmine pressed on. You call me unqualified? You call me ignorant? Then explain why it takes me, with just one sheet of paper, 10 seconds, to dismantle a narrative you've been selling to millions for years. The room exploded. Cheers, whistles, a wave of sound that drowned out Trump's protest. The moderators tried to restore order, but the energy was unstoppable. Trump slammed his palm on the podium. This is ridiculous, totally unfair. The media is in on it. She's in on it. It's all a setup. But the damage was done. His words sounded frantic, defensive, stripped of their usual swagger. Jasmine lowered the paper, folded it once more, and placed it calmly on the table. Her eyes never left Trump. Mock my intelligence all you want, but facts are louder than insults, and America just heard the truth. The crowd roared again, this time with an energy that left no doubt. The tide had turned, and yet the moment was only beginning to unfold. Journalists shouted questions, hashtags exploded across Twitter, and cable news channels cut into programming with live updates. The confrontation was already dominating the conversation. Trump's supporters, stunned, scrambled to defend him. Some shouted that the document was fabricated. Others insisted it was being misinterpreted. But the paper had weight. The details were verifiable. The authenticity undeniable. For Trump, it was a nightmare. A carefully cultivated persona of control cracking in real time. For Jasmine, it was vindication. The woman mocked as lacking intellect had just silenced one of the loudest voices in American politics with nothing more than a sheet of paper and 10 seconds of composure. And the media wasn't about to let it go. Pundits replayed the exchange on loop, highlighting the exact moment Trump's smirk dissolved into silence. Late-night shows seized the clip, memes flooded Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Hashtags like #OnePaper10 seconds trended worldwide. But in that hall, in those few minutes, the weight of history pressed itself onto the stage. It wasn't just about a debate. It was about power, truth, and the fragile illusion of invincibility. Trump's campaign team scrambled behind the scenes, frantically drafting statements to counter the blow. Spokespeople whispered into phones, demanding networks cut the feed, claiming bias, shouting that the paper was irrelevant. But the image was already seared into the nation's memory. Trump mocking, Jasmine waiting, then silencing him with 10 seconds and one document. On CNN, the clip ran with banners reading, "Crockett exposes Trump with single paper." Fox News tried to spin it, framing the exchange as another ambush, but even their analysts struggled to explain why Trump had been caught flat-footed. MSNBC, meanwhile, called it the defining moment of the night. In living rooms across America, families argued. Some insisted Trump had been blindsided by an unfair tactic. Others leaned back in stunned admiration, saying Jasmine had just proven her place among political heavyweights. Social media only magnified the chaos. TikTok videos slowed the moment down frame by frame, catching Trump's grin melting away as Jasmine read the line. Twitter hashtags like #PaperVs Trump and #10secondtruth shot to the top worldwide. Even late-night comedians couldn't resist. One joked, "Trump said Jasmine had no IQ, but it only took one IQ point to hold up that paper and shut him down." Another added, "It turns out the only thing stronger than Trump's voice is his own signature on a withdrawal form." Trump tried to recover, stepping back up to the microphone. She's lying. Don't believe her, folks. That's fake news, fake documents, fake everything. They're desperate, and they're using her as their pawn." But Jasmine refused to let him steal the floor again. She raised her voice, crisp and cutting. "This isn't about me. This isn't about your ego. This is about the American people who deserve facts instead of insults. You've made a career of tearing others down, but tonight you got torn down by your own words, and no amount of shouting changes that." The hall thundered with applause. Trump's words drowned beneath it. He scowled, waving his hands, but his frustration only fueled the perception that he was rattled, cornered, desperate. Journalists pressed forward, shoving microphones toward Crockett. "Where did you get that paper? Is it verified? How long have you had it?" She didn't flinch. She simply replied, "It was always there. Anyone who wanted the truth could have found it. The difference is, I wasn't afraid to read it aloud." That line itself became a headline. "Always there." She read it aloud, a phrase repeated across anchors' monologues and written on protest signs within hours. Trump's allies lashed out. Members of Congress loyal to him tweeted furiously that the document was taken out of context, that it was old news, that Crockett was grandstanding. But the public could smell fear. For the first time in years, Trump's confidence looked punctured, not by a prosecutor, not by a rival billionaire, but by a congresswoman holding one sheet of paper. The fallout was immediate. Overnight polls showed a shift. Undecided voters leaning toward Crockett's camp, independents praising her composure, even some Republicans admitting she had scored a clean hit. Inside the White House orbit, panic spread. Advisors debated whether Trump should double down with louder denials or pivot away entirely, but Trump himself refused to retreat. On Truth Social, he posted in all caps, "Jasmine Crockett is a fraud, low IQ, total disaster." The post racked up thousands of comments, but side by side with the viral video, it read less like strength and more like desperation. Meanwhile, Crockett's supporters celebrated. Clips of her holding the paper were set to triumphant music, edited into montages, even painted into digital fan art that spread across platforms. The phrase, "One paper, 10 seconds, the truth," became a rallying cry. The moment grew larger than politics. College students debated it in lecture halls. Office workers replayed it during coffee breaks. Parents told their kids, "See, sometimes you don't need to shout, you just need the truth in your hand." Trump tried once more to reclaim the narrative during a press conference the following day. Reporters peppered him with questions. "Mr. Trump, did your legal team really withdraw the case due to lack of evidence? Was Crockett correct about your signature being on the filing?" Trump snapped back, "That's not the point. The point is she's dishonest. She's a clown. She's been put up to this." But every denial circled back to the paper. Every insult reminded people of the 10 seconds where he had no answer. Crockett, for her part, didn't gloat. She gave a brief interview, her words steady. "I didn't set out to embarrass him. I set out to remind America that truth still matters. He mocked me, but I don't mind the insults. What matters is accountability, and that's what one paper showed last night." Her restraint only amplified the impact. Commentators called it a masterclass in political strategy. Supporters hailed her as fearless. Critics who once dismissed her as inexperienced grudgingly acknowledged her skill. And Trump? For perhaps the first time in his career, he seemed trapped in the shadow of someone else's performance. The man who built his brand on dominating headlines had been dominated. The man who laughed at others had been silenced by silence, then shattered by a single sentence. In the days that followed, the video remained everywhere. Analysts dissected it as a turning point, not only in that debate, but in the wider political landscape. It became a case study in how one moment, one fact, one piece of paper could reshape public perception. And so the story closed on a final image. Trump, red-faced and sputtering, drowned out by applause, while Jasmine Crockett folded the paper once more, calm and unshaken. One paper, 10 seconds, a truth too powerful to ignore.